Our dear friends, William Sidney Porter was an American short story writer who lived around the year 1900. Better known to us by his pen name, he is O. Henry. And he's especially remembered for the surprise endings that his short stories take. One of his best-known stories takes its name from today's feast. It's called The Gift of the Magi. And the story concerns a young married couple named Jim and Della. They are poor, but very much in love with each other. And as Christmas approaches, Della wonders what to get Jim for Christmas. She would like to get him a watch chain for his gold watch, but she doesn't have any money. And then she gets an idea. She has beautiful hair. She decides she will cut off her hair and sell it to buy the chain for Jim's watch. On Christmas Eve, she's returning home, and in her hand is a beautiful box, nicely wrapped, containing the gold chain which she has purchased with the money she got from selling her hair. Suddenly she begins to worry. She knows Jim admired her long hair and wonders if he will be disappointed that she cut it off and sold it. Well, only time will tell. She climbs the final stairs to their tiny apartment. She unlocks the door and finds Jim waiting. In his hand is a beautifully wrapped box containing the gift that he has purchased for her. When Jim sees Della's short hair, tears begin to form in his eyes, but he says nothing. He chokes back the tears and gives her the box. When Della opens it, she can't believe her eyes. There, in the box, is a set of beautiful combs for her long hair. And when Jim opens the gift, he can hardly believe his eyes. There, inside the box, is a beautiful chain for his gold watch. Only then does Della realize that Jim sold his gold watch to buy the combs for her hair. Now, some people, when they read that story, and it's also a play that you sometimes can catch, think this is the surprise ending is tragic. But most people consider it kind of beautiful. What makes it beautiful, not the gifts, because the gifts are useless to them, you see. He has a chain for a watch that he doesn't own anymore, and she has combs for her hair, and she doesn't have any hair anymore. But what makes the story beautiful is not the gifts, but it's the love that the gifts symbolize. And I'm not sure why O. Henry called his story The Gift of the Magi, but I think it's because the gifts of the Magi were also not so much important in themselves, but they were important for what they symbolized. And we're going to speak here about the symbolism of these gifts, and we're also going to sing about the three kings in our offertory hymn. And I'd like to point out that this We Three Kings, that is the very first American Christmas carol, dating from the year 1857, and was written not far from here in Williamsport, Pennsylvania. So remember that when you sing it, and when you sing it, you will refresh in your mind the meaning of these three gifts. Let's start with myrrh. Among ancient peoples, myrrh was used to prepare the dead for burial. For example, women brought myrrh to the tomb of Jesus because of myrrh's relationship with death. It makes an ideal symbol for human mortality, vulnerability, the fact that we will die. The gift of myrrh is a symbol of the humanity of Christ. Myrrh says, this is a real human being. Myrrh says, like us, he experienced the whole range of human emotions, joy, sorrow, fear, frustration, loneliness. He was like us in everything but sin. Frankincense. Ancient peoples used incense, as we sometimes do today in their religious worship. The aroma and the smoke spiraling upward to heaven spoke to them of gods and divinity. The gift of incense there is symbolic of the divinity of Christ. In the words of the song, incense owns a deity near. incense tells us that God is close. Jesus always had the nature of man, but he appeared in human likeness. And finally, there's gold. Among ancient peoples, gold was regarded as the king of metals. It was therefore the ideal gift for a king. A king was above all a leader. The ideal king, throughout the history of the Jewish people, the ideal king was the one who led by his love. He undertook noble causes for his people and inspired others to join him in those causes. Jesus was such a king. He led by his love. He undertook the noble cause of establishing God's plans and purposes here on earth, and he inspired others to join him in his work. And that's the practical message of the Feast of the Epiphany. What Jesus began in his time must be continued by us in our own time. If Jesus is to be made known, this is the feast we celebrate. The crux of the feast says that Jesus came not just for the Jewish people, but for all people, represented by these wise men who come from afar. And if we are to be faithful to what Jesus began in his lifetime, if Jesus is to be made known to other peoples and other nations, it must be brought about through our efforts. We carry the good news to other people. That's the good news that we must carry into the world, the practical message of the Feast of the Epiphany. I want to close with these words. I don't know who wrote these, but they seem appropriate as we come to the end of the Christmas octave. When the song of the angels is silent, when the star in the sky is gone, when the kings and the princes have gone home, when the shepherds have gone back to their flocks, then the work of Christmas begins to find the lost, to heal the broken, to feed the hungry, to release the prisoners, to rebuild the nations, to bring peace among brothers and sisters, to make music in the heart. Amen.